Next America. I'm your host, Jamie Lynn Wallnow, and today we have a special guest for you. Her name is Chelsey Youman, and she serves as the, wait for it, Texas State Director and National Legislative Advisor for Human Coalition Action, which means she's on the front lines for women and preborn children here in America. Talk about the next America. If you are a Christian, I know this is something we've been praying for. And so, Chelsey, I'm so excited that you're here to educate us and encourage us in the season that we're in right now.
Well, I love it. Thank you for having me. It's such exciting things to talk about. We have a lot of hope on the horizon for this issue and for the next America. So yes. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Okay, so when you think about the next America and what you're doing, what do you see or what are you hoping for and fighting for right now?
Well, we know that our generation and the generations below us really understand truth when it comes to abortion and life. And they understand they are the most pro-life generations that our country has ever seen. So I'm actually very, very hopeful for our country. I'm hopeful for preborn children. And I'm also hopeful for women. I think that my organization, we advocate on behalf of both women and their preborn children. And that's because we have a unique insight into what women seeking abortion are facing. My sister organization is Human Coalition. It's the largest pro-life organization in the country, and they are serving women in need to help advocate for them keeping their children every single day, day in, day out. Licensed nurses on staff, licensed doctors, we've got psychologists, and essentially women who are seeking abortion will call our offices. We get in touch with them through marketing and, your typical ways these days of getting in touch with women who's seeking an abortion. And we just ask them the simple question, if your circumstances were different, would you want to parent? And 75% say yes.
Wow.
Most women seeking abortion would prefer to parent, but their circumstances are standing in the way of that, or they see that their circumstances are so insurmountable that abortion, they think, is their only option. And so our sister organization, Human Coalition, comes alongside those women and really shows them that they can do it. They help them, they serve them. And then I take this wealth of information we have about women seeking abortion and their preborn children, and I turn it into policy and meaningful legislative reform.
Wow.
So that's why I love my job, because we're really just serving women and advocating for them in a different way and saying, okay, we know that women need childcare, they need jobs, they need safe houses to raise their children in, or maybe they are having struggles feeding the children they already have. So what kind of policies or government programs can we advance those initiatives forward in that are going to really alleviate these pain points for women and empower them to choose life?
I love that. I love the hands-on action of being part of the phone call, being part of the action plan. Like, you are so solution driven in what you're doing, not just with the women and their child, but also in government. That's phenomenal, where it's making a difference.
I think, most groups, and this is incredibly important work, and we are supportive of this work, we're involved in this work, they stick to, I call it the supply-demand side of the equation, right? So they work on the supply of abortion and limiting the supply, regulating abortion and abortion providers, and that is very, very important work to the pro-life cause. But you also have to work on the demand side of the equation. And why are women by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands every single year seeking abortion? And I think until we create that rescue system nationwide, and until we alleviate the culture of abortion on the serving women side, that's the best way to eradicate abortion.
That's so good. I think about people who are on the front lines of pro-life, and you all have such a different role in what you play, but it's like a giant puzzle.
It works together, though.
It does. It's perfect. Okay, I read an article that you wrote. It was bomb.com, and I just want to go there.
Okay,
I'm going to read a
do
quote
it.
that you said.
Okay.
You said, pro-life Americans need to pay attention in this November's election. The right to life is very much at stake. Our votes will determine whether more preborn lives are lost or saved. Now, this is a hot topic for Christians.
It is.
And I know we're going to go here even more about elections coming up and Christians, and there's so much division even in the church right now in the topic of elections. So what do you mean by pro-life Americans paying attention right now at the voting table?
I know we're going to get into it a little bit later, but I think it's really easy in the political climate we're in to hear all the yelling and all the name calling and all the slander that's out there. And as Christians, we desire to speak truth in love. And a lot of times we emphasize that love portion, and it feels really unloving right now in some ways to push forward and continue to say, like, there is an absolute truth here, especially when it comes to preborn lives. If we all, every human, Christian or not, should be able to agree with the statement that it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent life. We should all agree with that. Right. And so if you just take that and draw it out and apply it to abortion, that there's no real justification for it. I think we can serve women, we can empower women. I mean, sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is tell a pregnant woman, you can do this. You are capable of this. And you know, as Christians in the election, it's hard to look at abortion and look it in the eye and deal with it on its terms. And if you notice, the left will never deal with abortion on their terms. They're constantly rebranding. It's family planning, it's feminism, it's women's right. Now they're calling it healthcare, right? They're just constantly reproductive rights, rebranding the truth of what abortion is, and it is the ending of an innocent life.
Right.
And when you deal with it on its terms and you feel that in your soul and you understand that these are children dying, then your vote in November, there's a moral consequence to it. And you have to understand that you need to take that very seriously. And I think most Americans do, but we've got to get down to the issues and really deal with the issues and get past all the talking heads.
Yeah. You know, I have, my number one voting policy has been pro-life, but also what I love is that I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro-borders. I'm pro-Christians and protecting Christians' right to worship. I'm pro-American in the sense of protecting our Constitution. I'm pro-inner cities. I'm pro-family. Like, there's so many things that I get to vote for this year, and I'm very excited about. And one of the things that I'm fed up with the way believers are communicating about elections and what's going on, because for those of you who are tuning in, if you find yourself in the comment section of another believer's Facebook or Instagram because of voting rights, I want to say, go get a mirror and look in it. Open up the word and read it, because what's coming out of your mouth is a reflection of your heart. And I feel like a mom in America because I'm so tired. We are not going to accomplish anything arguing over social media. Pick up the phone and have a conversation. I have friends that are not voting the same as me, but we have civil, powerful conversations, and ride or die, we're in each other's lives. So that is what it looks like to be in the kingdom of heaven, but to have these difficult conversations. And so Chelsey and I are going to dive into this pro-life topic and what it really means in America right now and what we should be doing as Christians at the voting table in November, because there's a lot at stake. And for us to turn a blind eye, for us, we see it, we hear it all the time, talking about personality, whatever it may be. We're going to go there, and I'm asking you to stay tuned in and just ask the Lord to open up your heart to receive what's going on. But we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. We are demolishing the works of the enemy, and we are making Jesus Lord again in this amazing nation, and we're doing it through media. My name is Jamie Lynn. I'm the host of Set Apart podcast and the Next America Show. I cannot do this without your support and your help, and my dream and my desire is to hire a team to provide content for Christians to take down the enemy and make Jesus Lord in every sphere of influence. If you'd like to join us, go to jamielynwallnow.com today and join our tribe. Welcome back to the Next America. I'm here with Chelsey Youman, and we are having a really powerful, and we're about to dive in conversation about pro-life in America right now. So Chelsey, I read this article you wrote. Amazing. I'm so grateful for you and your voice, and I love that you're not messing around. We don't have time to mess around.
That's
we
right.
have time to be factual and real and take our stand, because I want to say too, for people listening in, what I love about having Chelsey on is we are too late in a sense, because we're having to react and respond to something that we should have been on the front lines for all along. But with God, nothing's too late and nothing's impossible. So we're having these powerful discussions about what we can do now to protect the preborn. So you said in a recent article, but electoral politics have always played a significant role in deciding the future of preborn lives, and never have politics mattered as much as they do in 2020. Can you share this or speak a little bit more into this for us?
Yes, that's absolutely true. I think if I were speaking to any Christian, any voter who's out there, the number one thing I would say is, yes, your vote matters in November for lives on the line. I mean, it is one of the only issues that you and me and anyone out there will vote for that is an issue that affects life or death.
Right.
And so I think there's a narrative right now in some conservative circles about really does it make a difference, and trying to, there's visceral reactions to Trump. And so any justification they can to not vote for him, including here's how I justify not voting on the life issue. And I want to say those issues are patently false. The truth is your vote does matter, and here's how. First, you're not electing a person, you're electing a party. And so with that individual comes thousands and thousands of appointments in DC through the administrative state, who decide who receives grants and funding and who doesn't, who decides whether they're going to protect life through memorandum and like the executive state, and whether they're not. And we've seen past administrations, Obama especially, increase funding to Planned Parenthood and increase funding to abortion advocates internationally. And President Trump, whether you like his rhetoric or not, on paper, in policies, he is actively promoting life. He's pulling funding from Planned Parenthood, pulling funding from international abortion groups, and then he's also using the executive state to protect life and do that in a great way. So you can look up, Family Research Council has a great list. It's an accumulative list of here's what Trump has actually done on conservative issues. If you're interested in pulling that up, Family Research Council has done some great work there. But in addition to just electing the party and all the platforms that come with that, you're also electing someone who nominates federal judges. Because you might say, well, mostly states are passing abortion regulations. We're not really seeing that out of Congress because they're asleep at the wheel. But at the state level, bills like the bill I have that we truly believe will decrease abortion in the state of Texas by up to 40%.
Wow.
Just by meeting the needs of women and serving women in need.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's just extension of our work on the clinic side at the state level and broadening that impact. Well, bills like that, as fast as they're passed, they're challenged. They immediately go to a federal court, and that federal judge is appointed by the president. Every single one of them.
Wow.
And so the Supreme Court, while that's incredibly important long-term for constitutional, Roe versus Wade and overturning that, they take less than 1% of the cases in front of them. So it's your district court levels and your circuit court levels that decide whether my legislation stands or fails. And
Can we just rewind for a second?
Yes,
what you just
let's
said.
do it.
So many people are fighting for Supreme Court, but I love what you're saying. I hope that you guys are encouraged tuning in right now because we're literally getting a little education, we're in class right now.
How a bill becomes a law.
Yes, no, but that's so crazy because you think, the Supreme Court is going to change everything. And while they play a factor, you just said they face less than 1% of what comes to the table.
Right.
So we're talking more like the administration that's voted in will choose the federal judges.
Yes, the president chooses your federal judges. And so yes, the Supreme Court, we can get to that later. It's incredibly important. But you might see a real abortion case before them once every 5 to 10 years. I mean, sometimes a decade goes by. And so we're talking about the legislation that regulates abortion. Do abortion providers have to have insurance? Do we have to make sure they're medically licensed professionals? All of those regulations, women having to see their children before they abort them, human trafficking protections, like the minor protections that we see go through that say your parent has to be involved in this process because we know that human trafficking victims, they don't have a parent involved. They have a pimp involved. And so there are so many measures to regulate abortion and decrease abortions in our country. They're passed at the state level, but your federal judges are the ones deciding whether they stand. And that is what you're voting for in November, is to say we're going to continue to have conservative, originalist judges who understand how important life is, but also how important it is to regulate this unregulated industry called abortion.
Wow.
So that's why your vote matters. It's federal judges, it's the administrative state, and then it's the policies that they'll help promote or not. And it might take years to see the fruit of that labor. If you look at abortion rates, they're steadily declining over time. But, and we know we're going to talk about this later, really, the law is downstream of politics, and politics is downstream of culture. And so we have a duty on the culture side, not just the political side, to address this issue as well.
Well, and speaking of culture, there's a narrative being pushed that is very, where as believers, a lot of culture is trying to fit the gospel into it instead of recognizing that the gospel and the word of God is totally set apart from what culture is saying, and we're called to live from a place that is like the word is the word, and we're called to serve the Lord, right? Which requires different action than what we're seeing culturally. Side note, But let's talk about this. How would you describe the two different platforms and what we could see come November, depending on which way it goes with pro-life
Sure, this is so important. So pull up the Democrat national platforms and read them. And in Texas, the Texas Democrat Party platform is as extreme. You might think, oh, Texas is pretty conservative. No, it's wild. I've never seen anything like what they're advocating for. These are quotes. Abortion should not be regulated. That means abortion until birth should be allowed. They believe in partial birth abortions. They believe in dismemberment abortions. I mean, really horrific, barbaric things that they are advocating for. The Democrats are actively voting and advocating against an Infant Born Alive Protection Act. Nationwide, there's one at the federal level, there's one in our state that passed, luckily, in the state of Texas, but the Democrats voted against providing life-saving medical care to a child born alive after an abortion, a failed abortion. So it's more extreme than we've ever seen it. They want to repeal the Hyde Amendment. That's the big thing. If you don't know what the Hyde Amendment is, it's your taxpayer dollars going to fund a woman's abortion. Well, 80% of Americans disagree with that when polled. Even pro-abortion and members of the American public say that we shouldn't have taxpayer dollars going to this. They want insurance coverage to provide for it. They want Obamacare to provide for it. I mean, there's no end to the list of things on the Democrat side that they're advocating for. And so I think sometimes Christians need to wake up a little bit and realize this isn't a stagnant issue where you're either pro or you're against, and it just kind of goes back and forth a little bit. There's active measures on the other side trying to push it forward, to fund it more. $600 million goes to Planned Parenthood from the federal coffers.
Which is mind-blowing, because I had the honor of hosting the Life Matters campaign on God TV, and I learned so much Planned Parenthood statistics and what health services are actually provided. But they count, like, the way they do the percentages is so manipulative and tricky, the way they're communicated. Because if you understood that, like, even the way that they pass out condoms, but they're counting each item they pass out instead of bulking the percentage together. So it sounds like they do way more health services and wellness for women than are actually provided. It's dangerous. And I'm grateful for Abby Johnson and her voice and how she was a part of Planned Parenthood. So I encourage you to go read about Abby Johnson and her story with Planned Parenthood, because it gives great insight. And we're going to keep diving into this because we're going to take another quick break. But I love this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you, because we need to talk about this, especially right now, because we need to vote. Oh, wait, vote. Okay, we'll be right back after this message.
I see what's going on in America right now, and I'm sad. I wish I could vote in this election. Tens of millions of Christians did not vote in 2016. I don't understand why. I hope America is still a free country when I turn 18, because I will vote. Why are you willing to let the ungodly run this country? Please vote in this election. Please vote for those who want to return America to our biblical foundations. Vote for the platform, not the person.
Welcome back to The Next America. I'm here with my new friend, Chelsey Youman, who is really schooling us in pro-life and how powerful and important this election season is. 2020 is an important year for you to get out and vote. And while you may be disagreeing with me, tune in a little bit longer, go catch the beginning of this episode, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's not argue about it. Let's discuss it and find out what is important for Christians this year. So let's break this down. We were just talking about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And I love how you were talking at the beginning of the interview. I don't think about it as Trump and Biden. I really do view it as an entire administration and people that we are electing in who are like living out their call on earth. Like they're like, this is what I want to do. And they're able to do it. And they're able to protect Christian values because we keep voting them in. So can you address a little bit more the Republican platform and the Democrat platform in elections? Why is it really important that Christians vote? Because I see a battle on social media about voting for Biden or Trump because personality, blah, 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 blah.
Well, first I'll say I love where you're taking it, because we have to get past the rhetoric of both parties. Both parties are so hateful to each other right now, and it's really amped up. And I think I always care much more about substance over form. And I think our generations especially, we had the benefit of seeing, I would say mostly really high integrity politicians. So the President Bushes and President Obama's, they were diplomatic in their approach. But if you look back further in history, we have a lot of immorality in the office. President Clinton, President Nixon, President Kennedy. I mean, there are a lot of infractions. And so for me, we have to get past this idea that our president is our pastor or that he's going to have the same values we do. Unfortunately, that's not the reality we live in. And I have to grow up and say, what are the issues? What's the substance that I'm voting for?
Right.
And it's a party platform. And we were talking about how the Democrats, they want to move the ball forward. They're not just sitting happy with abortion rights where they are. They're wanting to advance them. So here's an example. Telemedicine abortion is the next newest and biggest trend in abortion. And so right now, a woman can go online, I won't say the website, virtually to speak to an international doctor, never have an examination or sonogram to see how far along she is, if it could be safe to even have an abortion. She can order an abortion pill. The prescription's filled in India and mailed to her door. No FDA approval. Nobody knows what's in the drugs. We don't really know if they're safe. That is the next trend in abortion.
That makes me want to throw this desk over.
Yeah, I mean, this is from the party that says they're pro-woman. To me, that's not pro-woman. That's not pro-anything. So for our side to know, when you're going to vote, we're voting to say, well, the FDA needs to be involved in these situations. Well, that's an executive branch government. That's your president right there, putting the right people in place to stand in the gap and say, we're not going to allow women to be treated this way. And we're going to protect preborn children all the way across. So when you're voting, you're really voting for something. You're voting to say, I'm for women. I'm for finding better solutions. Women deserve better than this. Their children deserve better than this. And really that starts at the church.
It does. How can we play a role in this right now?
I think one of the most compelling statistics I heard is that 40% of women who have abortions are attending church on Sunday.
Wow.
I mean, they're in our pews. They're sitting next to us. They're our friends, our sisters, some of our moms, some people's wives. This is something that is a decades-old issue that's deeply personal to so many people. And I think it's easy for the church not to want to go there because they don't want to rock the boat and they want unity and peace. And sometimes I think the most unifying, loving thing you can do is to go there and create a culture of life and not shame, and to say that we're here to help you as a church. We're here to come alongside you. We'll help you find childcare. Yeah. We'll help you get to work if you need stable transportation. I mean, it's not rocket science what these women are facing. They're tangible needs that we as a body can come alongside them and meet. And so when it comes to, what can we do as believers, I would say register to vote based on this issue. It's one of the only life and death issues on your ballot. And then look around you in your church and just say, do we have a culture here that even talks about this? Do women know if they get pregnant, what they can do? Like where they can call?
Right. Is there somebody in the body in our building on staff that they can call? Is there a pastor in place to help?
Right. And we can help you do that. Go to humancoalition.org or my organization, hucoaction.org. Human Coalition serves women day in, day out. They partner with churches and help create that lifeblood for women so that they can really feel empowered to choose life. It's just what we know they ultimately want to do anyways.
Yeah. Okay, let's hop into this real quick. Supreme Court, how important is this topic right now that we're hearing buzz around?
It's incredibly important. The Supreme Court will decide decades and decades worth, especially for how young our Supreme Court is now. We're looking at a lifetime of decisions on abortion and life and immigration. I mean, a whole host of issues we all care about. I'm obviously the abortion expert here, but knowing that we have a Supreme Court that's going to be hopefully originalist and say, was it really the original intent in the Constitution to have abortion? No, we know the Constitution doesn't speak to that. The Constitution, really those rights only come into play if you're allowed to live. And so understanding that our Supreme Court, they're going to be deciding decades of these issues, I think is incredibly important.
That's really powerful. See, this is amazing. I'm so grateful for you. Okay, let's be real. How can we be part of the solution? What are things that people tuning in right now can do to be part of the pro-life movement other than pray? Because it is our most powerful weapon on earth. I had a dream one time that totally changed my life. And it was like, I knew, it's like the Lord was in my dream. And he was like, your most powerful weapon on earth is prayer. And so I want to encourage you guys to pray. And then also, what can we do as American citizens on the front lines to help serve?
Absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about this. So the law is downstream of politics, and politics is downstream of culture. So let's start with culture. That's where it all begins. That's our biblical Christian worldview. Culture says that you serve the poor around you, you serve the needy, you protect widows and children. And so it starts by looking around, like we talked about, and serving women who are pregnant next to you. And that can be financially if you're in a life phase where you don't have a lot of time, but you have a lot of money. Let's donate to women, people like Human Coalition who are serving women day in and day out. Or if you have time on your hands, volunteer, watch a woman's child while she goes to work. I mean, very basic things. Disciple the men in your churches who are contributing to fatherlessness in our country. I mean, there are so many tangible things in your church to help create a culture that says we value life and we value the women and men creating life, right?
That's so good, yeah.
And then we go down to politics, and that's going to be vote, vote, vote. Register and then show up and vote, and understand that when you're voting for a party, not a person. Vote down ballot all the way. Your state legislators lower on the ballot, they're the ones passing pro-life laws, if they're pro-life. So know that they're pro-life. And then when you get all the way up to the top of your ballot, which is obviously the presidency, understand when you vote there, you're voting for conservative originalist judges. You're voting for over 5,000 appointees who are going to go to D.C. and work in the administrative state to help stop abortion and promote life. And then obviously the presidency, and that's how we get there, I think, as a culture.
I love that. How can people connect with you who are tuning in right now?
Sure. So you can go to HUCO Action, HUCO Action.org. And if you want our election materials in the state of Texas, we've got voter guides, we've got our endorsements statewide. And you can learn more about these issues and more, and just contact us through there, HUCOAction.org.
Thank you so much for your time and for what you're doing. I'm so grateful for you. You're
Well,
killing
thanks for
it. You're doing
having
a great
me.
job
Thanks.
on the front lines, informing us, empowering us. You're doing great. Hey, if you're tuning in, I want to thank you for staying with us and being part of the pro-life conversation. What we do today determines the next America. Voting is a big part of that right now. So if you need to know, if you still don't know what to do, pray and get around the table, get off social media, and get on the phone and talk to people about why they're voting and why it's important. Call your pastor, talk to them about it, whatever it takes. But we need to get to the voting table this November and vote life. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Follow us on Instagram, The Next America Show. You can go subscribe to our YouTube channel underneath Jamie Lynn Wallnau, or go to jamielynwallnau.com for all the fun goods. See you next week. If you want to help shape the next America by restoring Christian values in media and every sphere of influence, come join our tribe today. There's a level of support for everyone out there. Go to jamielynwallnau.com, support.